Got your attention. Welcome to Hawaiian Mission House's Historic Site and Archives. This is the fourth in our this is our first Hawaiian series, Ukulele and Hawaiian, but this is the fourth of our Hua Mele series. And we've been talking about the progression of Hawaiian music, the kinds of things that cause changes to occur in Hawaiian music. And we always precede the concert with a discussion. And we've got a great panel of folks to talk to you about both slack key guitar and ukulele today. So first, before we start that, I introduce Aaron Mahi. I want to talk just very briefly about music and the humanities. How is music related to humanities? Somebody.
It makes us human.
Makes us human. How does it make us human? Okay, just the entertainment value of music isn't part of the humanities. What makes it part of the humanities is that it helps us think about the human condition. It helps us understand who we are, why we do things, how we exist on Earth, and why we exist on Earth, and how we relate to other people and things. And that's really what the humanities are. We're partially funded by the Hawaii Humanities Council. That's why I have to talk about this. So I think this panel especially really makes this event a humanities event, because that's what this panel does. It talks about what happened to make music change in Hawaii, and how music is important to the people of Hawaii, how it makes us understand who we are and how we relate to different people in the culture and to different cultures as they began to come into Hawaii. That's really what this session is about. So now I want to introduce Aaron Mahi, who's been our coordinator and consultant for our entire series, and he's going to introduce the rest of the panelists. Aaron.
Hello. Thank you so much, Tom. Do all of you hear me? Can you hear me? Do you need a little more sound? Test 1, 2, 3. Is it getting a little better there? I'm starting to hear some coming back. Is it enough for you all? Mahalo. Mahalo. I'm gonna I'm going to mele, actually, a verse of a song to begin our discussion this evening, only because the song starts at this particular area, the area of Ko. In old days, it was called Ko, but now we know it as Honolulu. And the composer was a seafaring man, and he leaves Honolulu to go back to his home town area, his area where he was born, and this was in Ho'okenakona. And I'm not going to do all the verses because then that's not the point. I'm trying to give us a flavor and a feeling of Honolulu. Later on, when we have the inception of the ukulele and the guitar, especially in slacky style, it was so adapted, this song, this mele. Lat Kawe is the composer, and we know it as Hail Hono o Honolulu. Speaks of Honolulu, Mamala, the large bay here in the channel that takes, of course, the Aumoku out. And as it makes its way, it comes around the turn of Le'ahi. It is important to know that Honolulu is always identified by the Ku Kalahale rain. It's a rain that comes straight down, and it announces the sense of being here in the area of Ko. And from this rain, we make the turn at Le'ahi, where that kukui, that lamp that is located in the Hale Kukui, the lighthouse, is so strong that you say in Hawaiian, Pia ola ike kaulaula. The lamp cannot be put out because by the kekaula wind that is so strong that puts all the touches out. But because this kukui has the light that can withstand this strong wind, another wind that comes on the kona side of Oahu. And so if you may recognize it, He aloha Honolulu I ka uahu kalahale Ka nukua o mama Ua e nei mahope Ka umai ana mamua Ka malulua olele Kukuya mahama Puya ole ke kaulaula He aloha o Honolulu We welcome you to this of our series, which will be concentrating on two instruments that when they came into a play here brought by foreigners, quickly adapted to our Hawaiian music. On the panel serving, we have Dr. Byron Yasui, a very good friend of mine. We played bass in the Honolulu Symphony together. Byron is a wonderful ukulele player. The ukulele was practically attached to his body at birth. And he always told me the story when he would be sleeping at night, the ukulele would be right on his opu and he would be playing. So that's his such a close relationship, and he's a doctor of composition and theory at the University of Hawaii, and I think you are now retired. Yeah, Byron Yasui, Dr. Byron Yasui. On his left is, of course, you all know John Berger, a very good friend. And you read many of his articles. He is a writer for the Star Advertiser, many years with the Star Bulletin, reviewing music as we understand it and see it in the Hawaiian concepts. Wonderful reviews of many recordings of a Hawaiian artist, and truly dives into the music of Hawaii and the musicians of which present their renderings. And of course, recently he has released the second edition of Hawaii Music and Musicians that was, of course, edited and presented to all of us by Dr. George Kanahele. And so I present to you John Berger. And to represent the styles of Slaki, very sensitive. I always would listen to his music down at the Monterey. Was it Monterey? Was it Monterey Cannery where he was playing down there for a long time? Yeah, Ozzie.
Thinking of Ozzie.
Oh yeah, Ozzie Kimura. Oh sorry, Ozzie Kotani, Calamite. Oh, I jam up already, Mahi. But still, yet Ozzie has just always brought to us a sensitivity of the instrument. He has several renderings of lesson books that have been used in understanding the pedagogy of Slaki guitar. And so we're looking forward for our brother Ozzie Kotani sharing with us today. Our brother, yeah, aloha. And so I'm going to start on the eastern side of the island here of this table. And I'm going to present some questions. And I'd like each of our panelists to think a bit about, and since Ozzie was speaking about Slaki, styling, and also Byron to speak about the ukulele, and then our brother John Berger to share with us maybe the concepts that he's discovered through the many musicians that he's reviewed and interviewed and had experiences with, relative to sharing with us a little bit of how these instruments came upon our people of Hawaii, and how these instruments had adapted so well to the music making of our Hawaiian music. And so I'd like to start with Ozzie, if you'd like to share with us your concepts and perceptions of how Slaki has lent itself to the music of Hawaii from its inception here.
Well, actually, I geared my information towards where Slaki has been, where it is today, and where it's going. So, can you hold
Give us a little background. How did Slaki start in Hawaii? From whence did it come? And maybe we need a little more power on this mic, a little more. volume.
All right, you guys can hear
that's
better.
good. Oh, that's
Okay.
good. I can feel that right now. Yeah.
Well, Slacky, the history of Slacky is completely theoretical. There's several theories about when the guitar was introduced by whom. It's all theoretical. So, I don't, you want me to talk about
Yeah, let's
that?
go quick. How many people don't know what slacky guitar is? Raise your hand. Okay, good. You don't,
I'll
have to
give
get-
you-
don't talk about that.
Okay, so then I'll
But
capsulate
yeah,
the
just a
history.
little background.
Yeah,
between-
1794, during the reign of Kamehameha III, Kauikeauli, Captain George Vancouver gave to the King Kamehameha King Kamehameha I received cattle from George Vancouver. Kamehameha put a kapu on the cattle. They were allowed to run rampant. They became a problem. Later, during the reign of Kamehameha III, Kauikeauli, he has a emissary go to Mexico, and they see the vaqueros and their cattle handling skills. Arrangements are made for vaqueros to come, and in 1832, supposedly the first vaqueros arrived and introduced the guitar. There's also theories about the guitar being introduced much earlier during the whaling period. The guitar was already prominent in England, things like that. So no one's actually really cemented the actual history. Somebody said you should go back to the what is that listing of what's on the boats when they come in, the whatever. Yeah, somebody said that might be a good place to go. But anyway, that's a theoretical history. But anyway, the Hawaiians, for whatever reason, the Hawaiians did not learn the Spanish or the standard tuning as we know it. They adapted the guitar for their use, presumably for practical fingering and to meet to match their voice. And so slacky. So that's the theoretical history. You guys have any questions about it?
Well, we have a Q&A later on, but just go ahead
Okay.
and then share a bit. Then we'll move to Byron, and then we'll move to John.
So I'll talk about it in the context of how I experienced slacky. When I started, slacky was still very identifiable. There were a handful of players who were prominent at the time. Slacky is characterized by an alternating, most of the time alternating, sometimes not, but a bass line accompanied by a melodic line plucked on the higher strings. And this is from an oral tradition. It's passed on by watch and listen. There's no written history of slacky, so it's passed on in the old style of watch and learn. That's how I learned, by watching my kumu, Sonny Chillingworth. And it's a solo style of playing, and it reflects also hula rhythms. There's also turnarounds, like what we call vamps. And the reason why I think slacky was so identifiable in the earlier days was because I think most of the players, I'm sure all the players were immersed in Hawaiian music, and so they either sang Hawaiian songs or listened to Hawaiian music all the time, and so I think that was reflected in the music they played. Today, I think there's some. Slacky is still healthy today. Lots of players. It has a strong presence on the internet, on YouTube. But I think it's going through an identity crisis of sorts. I hear some people saying, "Oh, how come it doesn't sound Hawaiian?" Things like that. And the reason is, I think you have to look at what every artist brings to the table and what their background is. For example, my kumu, Sonny Chillingworth, loved kachi kachi music, Puerto Rican, what he called borinquen music. He loved that kind of rhythm. So everybody, and I heard Gabby loved the Beatles. That might, be a reflection on some of his work with the Boys on the Gabby Band album. Everybody brings something to it. The difference was, I think, the earlier players all, like I said, were immersed in Hawaiian music. And so the sensitivities were a little different. I think now when you have players who are not based in Hawaiian music, perhaps they come from another background, their pockets are going to be filled and their sensitivities are going to be different. Their pockets are going to be filled with different ideas, perhaps. I'm not sure. That's just my my outlook on it. But I still think Slacky is healthy. A lot of workshops going on. There's young players, and I don't know. Should I talk about where it's going to go? Get them all in one track?
Let's save that. I just wanted to get the beginning part of the start. Okay,
Okay.
that's
Mahalo.
good. Thank you, Ozzie. Byron, can you give us a little bit of the inception of ukulele, from whence it came, and how it adapted so quickly to our Hawaiian music?
The way, oops, can you hear me? Yeah. The way I understand it, a lot of my information about ukulele history comes from the person who I regard as most knowledgeable in dealing with ukulele history, and his name is John King. And unfortunately, he passed away of a heart attack a few years ago. He was living in Florida, but he's visited many times. And he is someone who I regard as the world's perhaps only true classical ukulele player, using classical guitar right-hand techniques, playing classical pieces on the ukulele from the written music, Bach music, John Philip Sousa, Stars and Stripes, printed out music, not head arrangements. Well, anyway, he's my source, and reading from his the book on the start of the ukulele, the impression I have is that in 1879 there are three principal woodworkers who came here from Madeira, the island off of Portugal, to work the plantation, sugar, pineapple, and they were woodworkers, and they brought with them at least two string instruments from Portugal, maybe more. And the two instruments mentioned are the machete, M-A-C-H-E-T-E, I think, and the rajao, R-A-J-A-O. Now the machete was a smaller ukulele, a string instrument, sort of like our modern day soprano ukulele. And then the rajao was a little bigger, like a tenor ukulele. Now the machete had 4 strings, and the tuning was, and pardon me, I don't have perfect pitch, but it goes from low to high. If you strum down with your thumb, the pitches would be D, G, B, D, like a G major chord. So that's not the ukulele as we know it, but the size is like what we know. The rajao was a 5-string instrument. However, a lot of illustrations of the day, John King points out, has the 5th string, the top string, missing. A lot of people left it out and just kept the bottom 4 strings. But with the 5th string, the tuning would have been we call this re-entrant tuning. It starts low and goes high, then it starts low again and re-enters and goes up. And the pitches would be like this: D, G, C, E, A. And when you leave out that 5th string, the first pitch that I sang, you end up with G, C, E, A. My dog has fleas. And the people who play the machete would apply that tuning to the machete. So the smaller machete became what we now know as the ukulele. Actually, what we call the ukulele now is probably a hybrid, a combination, a little bit of the machete and the tuning of the rajao. I think is that.
Yeah, that helps us. Yeah. What was the concept of the baragita? What was the baragita? That instrument. Baragita.
Oh, braguinha.
Yeah, braguinha.
I don't know. I don't know about that.
Everyone heard about the braguinha, that instrument? Yeah, that's a popular concept in terms
of. If I knew you were going to ask me, I would have.
Oh no, sorry. Let me turn that over to John now, because John has been doing all the research in terms of the overview of the instruments and so on.
I was going to offer a suggestion based on the research that I've done and a lot of the input from John King, suggesting that braguinha they're the language specialists, I am ashamed to say, was a term from the Portuguese mainland, and that machete was the name that the instrument was called in the islands of the Azores, where it came from directly from the Azores to Hawaii. So it may have been a case of a similar instrument or the same instrument having a different name on the Portuguese mainland than it did in the Azores, because for a long time, I'm coming up on that difficult word. You're going to help me with it? Yes. What I believe was the term that a lot of researchers thought was what that instrument was known as when it arrived here. And research by John King showed that that was probably not the case. One of the things that he did, and you can read about this in his book, and you can read a little bit about it in Hawaiian Music and Musicians, was he went through the city directories of the 1880s to see when these craftsmen started advertising themselves out as instrument makers and what the names that they used for the instruments that they were making for sale. And this type of thing has also been done going through ads in the newspapers from the 1820s and 30s and 40s to see what type of instruments were being brought in, when they were being brought in, whether they were, for example, when guitars appeared in newspaper ads. And I don't have that information off the top of my head, or I don't have it up here to share with you to ad-lib it, but you going back to newspaper ads and some of these other primary sources have helped researchers sort of, I guess you could say, fine-tune or add details to our knowledge of when instruments at least were available for sale and what they were called. And one of the things that I'm curious about that I don't have an answer for is that since there were Portuguese people living in Hawaii long before 1879, did none of them bring these instruments in? Did nobody notice? And we may or may not find the answer to that. I mentioned in the book, and I think this is something that Dr. Kanehele said in the first book, that 150 years ago, there wasn't the same degree of interest in documenting, for example, the evolution of slack key that we wish there had been. And we don't know, for example, when the guitar arrived. Did it arrive with the Mexicans? Did it arrive? Were people bringing in the guitar before that? There must have been, for example, there were probably sailors on ships that had these Western instruments. Did the Hawaiians hear them? Did any of them stay here? These are things that we're still researching. And that's one of the things that makes researching almost any aspect of Hawaiian music, or probably other aspects of Hawaiian culture, so interesting, because it's like a detective story or a mystery story. You're doing research on one particular thing, and maybe you find something that leads you off into another direction.
Thank you, John. I have a question. Since Byron kind of got into the development of the tuning of the ukulele itself, I'm going to ask Ozzie if you might want to share with us some of the tuning strategies that took place over in slack key. And we always say in Hawaiian kiho alu, which is kiho, which is the string, and alu means to be kind of loose, to loosen. And I can understand that approach to the Hawaiian. But do you have some ideas in terms of how the various tunings of slack key were developed? Was there a standard tuning? Was there one that developed over time?
I don't know the answer to that. I can give you what I think. I think it reflected for sure practical fingering. It makes sense to tune the guitar so that you can play in it easily. So, and actually, what I was told by some kupuna and Auntie Alice, her style of playing is the really old style. That it doesn't have an alternating bass, and the early kiho alu was always accompaniment to the voice. Actually, the very earliest recording I've heard from the oral history tapes at Bishop Museum, the archives, is Kapu Kavele Lau playing for Kavena Pukui, and as he plays, he's playing his guitar, and he's singing the same melody. I heard that was the earliest form. They sing the same. It wasn't counter melody like how Hi'ilawe is with Gabby and with Kamanu by Auntie Alice. They were counter melodies sung to the what they were playing. But basically, a very common tuning would be what we call open G. So it's DG, DG, BD, an open G chord, and if the third string is lowered half a step, it becomes Wahine G. And so there's all these tunings that branch off of certain tunings. That's the kind of a thing that attracted a lot of people, is that there's a spectrum of different styles and tunings used by various that's the thing, is early on Slaki was kind of kept insulated and secretive to a bit, kept within the family, and that's why you have a diverse range of styles. If you listen to Ledward and how he plays, that Fred Punahoa Big Island style, and it's a definite kind of style of playing, and then there's the way Gabby plays, Raymond Kane, Leonard Kwan, they all favor different tunings, and folk like Sonny played certain tunings, and Atta Isaacs played in C major. So there's a lot of different tunings. The thing that I wanted to the point I wanted to make tonight was that it's not the tuning that makes it slack key. It's the way the tuning is played. You can play blues in open G, you can play folk in open D, you can play all sorts of different music, but it's a style of playing. It's not the tuning. It's really the style of playing. Yeah.
Can you just share a little bit? We hear taro patch, terms like taro patch. We hear terms like wahine. We have terms like mauna loa. I mean, these are all terms that we use for special tunings relative to slack key. Can you kind of share a little bit about that?
Yeah, the tunings they have different names, and they're all, like I said, the first person. Well, these are, a lot of them are family tunings that have become shared. I think Leonard Kwan was the first to actually share the family tunings in he put it in his album, on his album.
Yeah.
What is it called? The Old Way, I think it was called. Yeah, but the names of the tunings, the Wahine tunings are kind of characterized by a half-step resolve. I don't know how to. If I had one guitar, I could show you guys like half-step resolve and things like that. Yeah. But there's Mauna Loa tunings, there's Wahine tunings, there's open C, open G, slack G. I don't know where these tunings got their name, but it's the common names used amongst the players. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can I get a raise of hands, the audience, those that play slacky guitar? Have anyone in the audience have had experience playing slacky? One? No? Anyone else? Two? Of course, yeah.
I see a hand.
I see a finger.
And how many of you play ukulele? Raise your hand. You've had some experience playing ukulele. As simple as a C, D7, G7 strum. I mean, that kind of approach. Yeah, I mean, the adaptability is great. Yeah. Okay. The next question I'd like to share with you is a little bit about stylings. And I'll come to Byron for that first. What have you discovered in terms of the transition of the ukulele? And one thing that I can't stand is when people say uke. I'm sorry, I can't stand it. Uke. It's uku, meaning, the uku is a bug, and the lele, it means it jumps, so it's the flea, okay? So please correct people when they say that ukulele. Cannot handle that one. Anyway, so ukulele. And Byron, can you share with us a little bit about that? I mean, the transition from largely, was the ukulele a strummed instrument? Was it a pick instrument? And then from the very beginnings of it becoming a part of the Hawaiian expression of music, and where it's gone to today?
Yeah, I can't say for sure at the very beginning how people play the ukulele. I would suspect most people, when they play the ukulele, they don't pick, they strum. I think that's a natural thing most people do, because it's the easiest thing to do. And there are only two ways to strum, up and down. You see, you can't strum sideways. So, whereas picking, that involves left hand coordinating with the right, it's much more technical. So I would imagine the ukulele was mainly used to accompany singing at the beginning, but who knows, we don't have recordings from the early days. And majority of ukulele players sing songs, and they use the ukulele to strum, to accompany the singing. And at some point, serious musicians played the ukulele, and they brought it to another level where they could play solo, instrumental, melodic pieces or fast strumming pieces. And so then the ukulele developed over the years from an accompanimental instrument to a solo instrument. But I don't know if I'm answering your question.
You know, when I was growing up and listening to Hawaiian music, and I'm sure you've all had that experience. Largely in the family, my aunties and them would just strum. You know, strum a simple strum 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then later on, I was hearing recordings where there was a period of time, and I think it was around the 50s and 60s, where you would have this fast tremolo strumming. You know, like you would hear this, and the chords were just like so melodies, and it was. Remember that time when that was such a popular style of ukulele.
Denny Rigor was one person I can remember who played that style, the tremolo, and he's influenced me. Denny Rigor was, I think he was a winner of the Armed Forces talent show contest, and as a result of that, he performed on the Ed Sullivan Show, and he played ebb-tight in that style. You hear the melody and you hear the chords at the same time. Each chord, the top note of each chord is the melody note, and it's so it involved. You have to know the ukulele to be able to do that.
And you're going to see some of that tonight, definitely, with both Betty and Byron. And then later on, when Eddie comes on, when that what do you call it? What's called Slacky number 1, and also the Sons of Hawaii. There's a lot of picking, you know. It was all that kind of. Sorry, I don't have the instruments. I have to sing it. But anyway, but you guys get the feel, right? I mean, did you notice that all of a sudden you see the instrument from a very different perspective? And you want to share that? What style was that Eddie Kamai used, or then later when you have Peter Moon?
Yeah, I think it's somewhat akin to folk guitar picking. You play broken chords, arpeggiated chords, except it's applied to the ukulele. Now the ukulele doesn't have bass strings like the guitar does, so you need a bass player to play the bass, the foundation of the harmony. But that style of playing you hear a lot in country music, I think. That kind of picking versus strumming.
And then now with the style of playing now with opihi, what do you call it?
Opihi pickers.
Opihi pickers and all the Jake Shimabukuro, his style of ukulele playing, which is kind of like I guess a mixture and very percussive. The instrument becomes really seen.
He's brought it to a different level. I mean.
And what is your comment on that? Well, and describe that level to us.
Well, first of all, Jake is a virtuoso, and he brought it to the international stage. There are other people. There are periods in history of ukulele where the ukulele became famous for one reason or another. Usually a personality involved, like Arthur Godfrey, Tiny Tim. But they weren't really ukulele players. Yeah, excuse me.
No, we all remember Tiny Tim from 1968.
But they.
And if just to jump in and turn it back to you, Arthur Godfrey was a I guess you could say passionate advocate of the ukulele in the early 1950s, and I believe didn't he sell like plastic ukuleles?
Yeah.
And the sound quality was probably terrible, but people could play the ukulele just like they saw Arthur Godfrey doing it on TV. And I believe there used to be an Arthur Godfrey Memorial Fountain out at the airport.
Oh, I can't.
Somewhere. Okay, you're okay.
But ukulele sales, ukulele sales really skyrocketed with people like especially Arthur Godfrey. And maybe I'm getting off from what you originally asked, but nowadays ukulele is so big around the world. There are ukulele clubs all over, like and with funny names, purposely funny, like UGG, Ukulele Guild of Hawaii, right here in town. Puka, Portland Ukulele something Association. Supa, Seattle, I think, ukulele something. And dare I say, you suck. Ukulele Society of United Kingdom. You know, I mean, it's big. Ukulele is big around the world. Thailand, they have these huge festivals. All over the world, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, all over Europe. And now there are so many, dime a dozen ukulele makers. They're all over the place, is crawling with them now. I don't know how many of them are good ukuleles, but I mean that reflects how popular the ukulele has become. And I think a lot of it is, you know, thanks to people like Jake and, you know, maybe a few others.
Yeah, thank you. Let me turn the same question in terms of style development to now Ozzie, because you start to get into it, and I think I'd like to spend some time, if you could share with us the different directions in which the stylings of Slacky is going. And
Yeah, the difference with slacky, I brought it up earlier. Slacky is a style of playing. It's like with ukulele, it's the instrument itself. Yeah, with slacky, it's a particular style of playing, and so it's characterized by, like I said, a bass and a melodic line plug. So the older players mostly use just thumb and pointer. People like Ray Kane, Auntie Alice, and even Sonny use mostly two. A lot of players use these three fingers. Zero, lead, a majority of them use three fingers, and then you have some using four fingers, like Keola. You know, if they're classically trained, they're going to use four fingers. Keola uses four. I'm sure Jeff Peterson uses four, maybe five. I don't know. Sound like using five, but and I use four, but I don't have classical background. And I've seen people use five fingers to play as well. And the style, like when we talk about style, there's because of the oral tradition and not a written tradition, that's why you have so many, again, different styles of playing. And again, with everybody brings something with them, and their interpretation and their creative energy and where they want to take the music is reflected in the sort of rhythms they use and things like that. And it all ends up defining their style per se.
Thank you. We have a little time left for some Q&A. Those who might have some questions, I'd like to ask our panelists. I'm ready to entertain that. We have about a little short of 10 minutes. Oh, we have about 10 minutes for that. And Tom has the mic. Would anybody like to ask a question or present a question to our panelists? Yes, sir.
Well, in listening to this, it seems to me that it's the ukulele as an instrument is identified with Hawaii, whereas slacky as a musical style is associated with Hawaii. Because after all, the guitar is played in 100 different kinds of styles, flamenco, country, you name it. Is that
That's a very good
Is that not
observation.
reasonable observation?
Yeah, no, I never thought about it that way. Very good, thank you.
And I'd like to add that the steel guitar is also part of the Hawaiian musical legacy. And one of the ironies, I think, is that it has been this idea that was developed here using for lack of a better word, a haole instrument, the guitar, the concept of creating the steel guitar, which was an acoustic instrument until the mid-1930s, was so thoroughly adopted and adapted by country musicians on the mainland that a lot of people think of it now as, outside of Hawaii at least, think of it now first and foremost as a country music instrument and don't realize that country music musicians learned about it from Hawaiian musicians who were touring the United States in the teens and the 20s, and in some cases recording acoustic steel guitar on country music recordings. And Aaron probably knows more about that. But that's a third example of something that Hawaiians adopted and adapted from the outside and created something that was uniquely Hawaiian, and then going out into the world with it and having that idea that came from here being adopted and adapted by people in other parts of the world.
Yeah, that might be an idea for another part of our series. Doing just looking at the instruments that have adapted themselves and actually originated from Hawaii, and then spending some time talking about those musical genres in which they approach. I mean, the piano is one. I mean, the various styles of Hawaiian music, and just on the piano, and all the styles, from Richard Kauhi to Anohea, Matty Lamb. I mean, but that's for the next time. But anyway, you're giving me some ideas. Okay. So, any other question that someone like to present? Yes.
It's not a question, but a comment. Excuse me. 50 years ago, my kids were living in Waihe'e town on Maui and going to St. Anthony's in Wailuku. And the nuns gave the second graders, every single second grader got an ukulele. And I don't remember us paying for one when my daughter was in second grade. The ukuleles came from a gentleman named Louis Gaspar. His wife was an aunt. She was born a Kamaka, and she was an aunt of Joe and Sam.
Yeah.
And so he had a set of the molds, and he could make the ukuleles and guitars. And he was tone deaf, so he didn't ever know how they whether they sounded right or not. He just kicked them out. And he came in every morning. He lived up in Waihe Valley in Makamakaolu territory, and came down every morning to serve Mass at St. Anne's in Waihe town. And so we were the runners. If a ukulele was broken, it had to be fixed. Susie brought it home from school, and we gave it to Mr. Gaspar. We phoned him. When it was fouled, he would bring it and drop it at our house early enough so that the kids could take it into school in the morning. And he invented kind of a offset, because these are really little kids. I mean, second grade is 7 years old. He invented kind of an offset pineapple ukulele so that instead of going like this, it
was round.
Yeah, I know. I can't.
It's shaped like a pineapple. Yeah, I think a
It's
lot of
shaped
you,
like a
a lot of you
pineapple.
folks have seen the pineapple.
But it was
ukulele,
off
that's right.
center.
Mhm.
So
Oh,
that
okay.
the bridge came down with the strings,
Wow.
but the sounding thing was partly that way. Anyway, my kids are still kind of, you'd throw an ukulele at them, they can pick it up and plunk it.
Mahalo, mahalo. We have a few more minutes. Another question? Anyone would like to ask a question? Okay, great.
We see a hand.
Oh, there's a hand.
Yeah.
Speak right into the mic.
Edward.
So I see the growing sophistication of ukulele and music as being parallel to hula. I mean, when you see old videos, pictures of hula, when hula dancing in the 40s and before, it was kind of hamajanga. It wasn't very good, and like you see today, it's really more stylized, more sophisticated, more.
I would watch that comment.
Yeah.
It may rain.
I know. So ukulele music mirrors that growing sophistication, I think.
Well,
Yeah, John, you want to respond to that?
it's a little intimidating to be talking about hula in front of Aaron Mahi.
No.
But first of all, we need to remember that a lot of the hula that was filmed in those days was being performed for people who did not speak Hawaiian, and to use a phrase of a couple of kumuhula who helped me with the book, when you're doing hula for people that don't speak the language, it has to be more gestureful, bigger, and sort of more out there than when you're performing for people who understand the lyrics of the song or the chant. So I don't know that all of the hula was simple back in the 30s or 40s. I think we've seen ukulele virtuosos from at least the teens of the last century with Ernest Ka'ai. And I think Byron's father has the oldest known recording of Bill Tapia playing Stars and Stripes Forever, which he learned. It was a great story because when Bill would play it, he would say, "Here's a song I learned during World War I." He was 10 years old. He was 10 years old playing for tips on the streets.
Playing it behind his head too.
Okay. And he heard this song and he improvised this arrangement, and a lot of other ukulele players picked it up over the years. Yeah, but thanks to Byron's father, who worked with, did your father work for Bill, or did Bill work for him? Or?
My dad and Bill worked together
Okay.
for John Lai at Metronome Music Store down Hotel Street.
And they had
In the
access.
30s.
They had access to, I guess, what was in those days a wire tape recorder. So one day during lunch, I'm saying this is in the book, but Byron is the one who told me the story, so he deserves the credit. They recorded Bill Tapia doing this virtuoso performance on ukulele that a lot of people didn't associate with the ukulele because they thought of it as a rhythm instrument that people played, which of course is an older Hawaiian style. So years and years later, when the question came out as to, well, who was the first person to play Stars and Stripes Forever, and I believe it was Under the Double Eagle, Byron was able to pull out the tape and say, okay, here's a substantiation that Bill Tapia was doing it in the 30s.
Yeah, there may be others who played, but we don't have any recordings of that, of their virtuoso playing. So,
The Double Eagle. Oh.
no, it was Stars and Stripes and Chinatown and I forget 4 songs though.
Oh, it's an old Blankenberg march. Boy.
So, and again, that's one of the really interesting things about researching almost any type of Hawaiian music or other cultural things. You never know what's out there.
Yeah.
Here, this recording had been, I guess, in your father's possession for years and years.
Well, I found it in our collection of old stuff.
Yeah.
And there's this small little record with a fountain pen ink, Bill Tapia, Stars and Stripes Forever, etc., etc. And when I met Bill years later, he came to Hawaii. He told me, I made a cassette recording for him of that, and he says, your dad recorded that in 1936. Bill is very good with dates, and at Metronome Music Store. And that's, well, first of all, Bill is a great musician, jazz musician. He eventually played guitar, and banjo and all those string instruments. So no matter what instrument he played, he would have sounded good. And it just turned out that he played the ukulele as well.
Yeah.
What was the recording that you had in your box? What was it on? Was it a wire?
No, that was it was transferred to a disc, like an LP type, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But I don't know what speed, maybe 78 or I'm not.
Yeah,
but it wasn't a big one; it was a little smaller.
The question was, what format was the recording on, and Byron just explained that. A live recording of Hua Almeida performing, I believe, at the Moana Hotel, was discovered recently that had been in someone's private collection. A member of the band had it made just for archival purposes back in the 60s, and it was just in storage, and the heir to one of the musicians discovered it, and it was released, I believe, earlier this year by Michael Cord on Hanaola Records. And I'm bringing that up primarily as another illustration of how we never know when we may discover something or someone may find something that adds to our knowledge of what was going on with some aspect of Hawaiian music at one point or another.
Thank you, John. I saw a few more hands, and our time is up. Unless we want to try to take one more question. Yeah, sorry. Thank you I saw a few hands being raised, and so we're so sorry we couldn't get to your question. However, let's have a round of applause for our panelists, Ozzie Kotani, John Berger, Byron Yasui. And we thank all of you for being here and having this really healthy discussion about these stylings of our Hawaiian music and the development of these two instruments, and of course the sharing and the enlightenment of our Hawaiian music. And so we can now take a break, and we'll all see you at 6:30 up at the Hula Mound.
Excuse me.
So,
Sorry. Marsha, are you providing them with the resource list, reading list?
It's in the program.
Okay, good. You can read up about ukulele history in these John King's publications. Thank you.
And for those that are interested in purchasing some food, we have that